What if someone told you they were being watched, followed, harassed for years? What if they had evidence, threatening calls, break-ins, even attacks? But every time the police came, they found nothing. And then, one day, that person was found dead, bound, gagged, injected with drugs. But authorities ruled it a suicide. This is not a movie. It happened. This is the chilling, unresolved case of Cindy James, a woman who spent 7 years living in fear of an invisible enemy. A story that ends in death and questions that have never been answered. The story begins in Vancouver, Canada. It was the early 1980s. Cindy James was a nurse, smart, kind, and well-liked. After her divorce from her husband, Dr. Roy Makepeace, she was living on her own and working with children. By all accounts, Cindy was gentle, polite, and responsible. But soon after the separation, strange things began to happen. Small at first, then terrifying. Phone calls late at night, whispers, then heavy breathing, then words, threatening, obscene, angry. The voice on the phone seemed to know where she was, what she was doing, even what she was wearing. And then the calls were followed by letters. The letters were bizarre and cruel. They were made from magazine cutouts, like ransom notes, and filled with disturbing messages. Soon, you'll be dead. You can't hide. One even came with a mutilated piece of dead cat. Cindy went to the police. They told her to try and stay calm, to keep a record of everything. But as she started documenting the incidents, the harassment grew worse. Her porch lights were smashed. Her phone lines were cut. Windows were broken. And sometimes, the police would find ropes left at her doorstep or notes pinned to her door. Cindy began to live in constant fear. In one of her reports, Cindy told the police that whoever was stalking her had started breaking into her house, moving things around, leaving small, subtle signs that someone had been inside. Food from the fridge would be left on the counter. Clothes from her drawers would be scattered on the floor. Sometimes her dog would be found shaking, terrified. She even reported seeing a shadowy figure outside her window at night, watching her from the yard. The police investigated, but found no fingerprints, no signs of forced entry, no clues. Some officers began to doubt her story, but then something happened that made even the skeptics pause. In January 1983, Cindy was found unconscious behind her home. Her hands and feet were tied. A black nylon stocking was wrapped tightly around her neck. She had bruises on her body, and she couldn't remember what had happened. She told investigators she had been attacked from behind, but there were no witnesses and no clear suspects. Some officers believed her, others thought it looked staged. Still, Cindy insisted. Someone was trying to kill her. The attacks continued. In 1984, her house caught fire while she was sleeping. By the time firefighters arrived, they found her outside, tied up again, her hands bound, barely conscious. The fire had started in the basement, but the telephone wires had been cut, preventing her from calling for help. Police combed the property, but once again, there were no fingerprints, no signs of an intruder. Somehow, whoever was tormenting Cindy seemed to vanish into thin air every time. At this point, her family and friends were terrified for her. Her parents believed her completely. They saw the fear in her eyes, the trembling in her voice. They even stayed with her at times, taking turns to keep watch at night. But even they couldn't catch anyone in the act. As the years went on, the torment became psychological as well as physical. Cindy's phone would ring, and when she answered, there would be silence. Sometimes a faint whisper, sometimes laughter. Her mail was stolen. Her car windows were smashed. Once, Someone slit her dog's throat and left it in her yard. She started to lose weight. She stopped sleeping, and she began to fear that people, even her closest friends, might be involved. In her journal, Cindy wrote, "I feel like I'm slowly going insane. I can't tell what's real anymore." Despite everything, Cindy kept trying to live normally. She moved houses several times, changed her phone number, and even changed her last name. But somehow, her stalker always seemed to find her again. One night, she called her friend, Agnes Woodcock, and told her to come over immediately. She said someone was trying to break in. When Agnes arrived, the house was locked, dark, and silent. She walked around the back and found Cindy lying on the ground, semi-conscious, her hands and feet bound, a stocking around her neck. When police questioned her later, Cindy said she had been attacked again, but couldn't remember the details. There was still no fingerprints, no footprints, no evidence. To the investigators, the pattern was starting to seem impossible. How could someone tie her up so tightly, leave no trace, and disappear before anyone arrived? Eventually, the case began to split everyone involved into two camps: those who believed Cindy was truly being stalked, and those who believed she was orchestrating the attacks herself. Psychologists suggested she might have been suffering from a dissociative disorder, brought on by trauma or severe stress. Some detectives even thought she might have been harming herself to gain attention or sympathy, but her family refused to believe that. They said Cindy had no reason to fake anything. If anything, she seemed genuinely terrified of dying. By 1988, Cindy's life was falling apart. She quit her nursing job. She checked herself into a psychiatric hospital at one point, fearing she might be losing control of her mind. Doctors there noted she was exhausted, paranoid, and deeply depressed. But they also said she was coherent, intelligent, and not delusional. She was discharged after 10 weeks. She tried to rebuild her life, started seeing a new therapist, and even adopted another dog. But the calls and the letters continued. On May 25th, 1989, Cindy disappeared. Her car was found parked in a small shopping plaza near her home. Inside were groceries, her purse, and the wrapped gift she had just bought for a friend's child. Outside the car, a pool of blood was found on the ground, and a few of her belongings scattered nearby. It looked like there had been a struggle. A massive search began. For weeks, police, dogs, and helicopters scoured the area. Nothing. She had simply vanished. 2 weeks later, on June 8th, 1989, a man walking his dog discovered something strange in an abandoned yard, about half a mile from where Cindy's car had been found. It was a body. Cindy James was lying in tall grass. She was fully clothed. Her hands and feet were bound behind her back with rope. A nylon stocking was tied tightly around her neck, and several small needle marks were found on her arm. An autopsy revealed that she had been injected with a fatal combination of morphine and other drugs. The dose was enough to kill several people, but what stunned investigators most was that the rope knots were not simple. They were complex, precise, and difficult to tie, especially by someone under the influence of such a powerful drug. So the question was immediate. How could Cindy have done this to herself? The coroner's report could not determine how she died. It was officially listed as an undetermined death, but the police leaned toward suicide. They argued that no one else could have tied the knots or injected her without leaving a trace. They believed she may have taken her own life after years of psychological torment, self-inflicted or imagined. Her family and friends were furious. They said there was no way Cindy could have done it herself. The bindings were too tight. The injection site was in a difficult spot, And most of all, she had gone grocery shopping and bought gifts right before her disappearance. Why would she plan suicide in the middle of a normal day? In the years since her death, investigators, psychologists, and armchair detectives have all offered theories, none of them conclusive. Some believe Cindy was indeed the victim of a sophisticated stalker, possibly even multiple people, who harassed her to the point of collapse. Others believe she suffered from a form of psychogenic fugue, a dissociative condition where a person loses awareness of their own actions and later forgets them. There are even darker theories. Some point fingers at her ex-husband, Dr. Makepeace, though he was never charged and strongly denied involvement. Others suggest she may have had help, a friend or unknown accomplice who knew her fear and manipulated it. But the evidence, if it ever existed, was lost long ago. Today, more than 3 decades later, the case remains one of Canada's most haunting unsolved mysteries. It is a story that asks uncomfortable questions about trust, perception, and the limits of what we can ever really know about another person's mind. Was Cindy James a woman destroyed by fear and trauma, a victim of her own unraveling psyche? Or was she truly hunted, tortured, and silenced by someone who knew exactly how to make it look like suicide? The truth, like the killer, if there was one, has never been found. Sometimes the scariest stories aren't about ghosts or monsters. They're about the quiet lives that fall apart under invisible pressure, the ones where the line between sanity and survival slowly fades. Cindy James tried to tell the world she was being watched. Maybe she was. Maybe no one believed her. And maybe that's why her story still echoes in the dark. A whisper of warning, a cry for help that came too late, and a mystery that will never rest. This is the story of Cindy James, a woman haunted in life and forever unanswered in death.